Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. In today's video, I will be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 11. My bench boost is currently active, and I've got 3 free transfers to make some moves if I want to. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we'll be running through my team selection ahead of Game Week 11, any transfers I want to make, the captaincy matrix as always, and of course, I'll be looking at whether or not it's the week that I want to be using the bench boost, which we'll come on to later on in the video, of course. If you did enjoy today's video, it would mean the world to me if you could hit like and importantly, subscribe to the channel as we close in. We're so close now to 5,000 subscribers. So thank you so much if you're willing to do that. I really do appreciate it. Let's start off with how my goalkeeper and backline is shaping up for Game Week 11. Obviously, if I'm on a bench boost, I do need to consider the bench options, Dubravka, Anderson and Rodon. We'll come on to those in the video, of course. But starting off with my first team, so Pope in goal away at Brentford has been very frustrating since I wildcarded into him, but he's still picking up the save points, so I don't want to just completely disregard him as a pick, although there is a transfer route that I do like the look of to downgrade him that could afford me another player I really want to buy this game week. So I'm not completely set on keeping Nick Pope, but I still do have some faith that Newcastle will turn this around, that they've had a little bit of a poor patch of form, but I still think that they're a decent defence, and I still expect Pope to get the odd big haul for a keeper anyway, because he will get the save points. He is pretty good on the baseline BPS, so the bonus points as well. So if they keep a clean sheet, he's likely to pick up some bonus points too. I just don't think we've had that good fortune since I've wildcarded. So fingers crossed on him. Dubravka away at West Ham, I think, is bench boostable because it's a decent fixture. West Ham look much better against Newcastle, but it's fine. He'll probably pick up a save point or two. I'm not expecting a clean sheet, but it's not completely impossible. So I think he's fine to bench boost this game week. Moving into my defence, double Arsenal defence continues to be a really strong part of my squad, and a lot of us already have that double defence. I am a little bit concerned that Timber misses a game during what is now becoming a busier fixture period. I think game week 13 to 15 is where I'm most concerned, mainly because they play on the weekend for the 13, in the midweek for the 14, and then 15 is again on the weekend. So a lot of fixtures back to back to back. I am slightly worried that he might miss one of them, let's say the game week 14 fixture, but not worried enough to be getting rid of him. And the attacking returns are coming. He's getting close. I think, again, a little bit unfortunate in the last couple of game weeks not to get anything. I'm not giving up faith yet. And of course, he's still getting clean sheets. So I'm more than happy with him right now. Gabriel, we don't even need to discuss. He's just been absolutely phenomenal. Congratulations to any of you who captained him in game week 10. Obviously, very unfortunate that then Erling Haaland went and matched him, beat him by 1 point, but pretty much the same. But it was a brave call. And of course, it was a correct call. He did very, very well. And against Sunderland, I expect that to continue. So very happy with both of them. Senesi and Anderson, if I wasn't bench boosting, I'd have a really tough choice as to who I would start as that third defender. Both very good on DEFCON, both with reasonable chances of clean sheets. I think I'm slightly favouring Senesi, but there's really not much in it. It's almost a coin flip. And that is another reason that I'm actually quite tempted to use a bench boost this game week to make sure that I don't need to worry about which one of them I'm starting, because I think whichever one I do start, I've got a pretty decent chance of leaving points on the bench there, which is a good signal to maybe use your bench boost. Rodon away at Nottingham Forest. Again, I'm happy enough with it on a bench boost. I'm not expecting a clean sheet, but there's a chance. I'm not expecting DEFCON, but again, there's a chance. And I'm not expecting attacking return, but again, there's a chance. So with chances of all 3 of those different routes to points away at Nottingham Forest, I think it's fine. Probably the weakest player I've got on my bench boost. But again, I can make peace with that just to get the bench boost chip out of the way. So moving into my midfield, all 4 of these players have been very frustrating since I picked them up on wildcard. The returns just have not been there. But the big chances have been, and they've gotten a little bit unlucky in the last couple of game weeks. Enzo probably should have returned against Spurs. I think he was unfortunate not to get anything from that game. The same goes for Sarr in game week 10 as well. Hit the post, had a couple of good chances, scored a brace in the League Cup against Liverpool just before that as well. So he has proven that he's capable. I think a return or two is coming for Sarr, so I'm not losing faith there yet. Semenyo has probably been the quietest of the four in my midfield as of late, but he's got great fixtures just on the horizon. So from next week onwards, arguably even Aston Villa is not a bad fixture, but certainly from game week 12 onwards, I'm very happy to own him. And then Saka has probably been the most frustrating of the lot, given the price point. He is much more expensive than them, so I'm holding him to a higher standard. And again, has been getting the chances, 2 big chances missed in game week 10, goes and scores in the Champions League with a penalty, and I think he's now scored in 4 away games in a row in the Champions League. So we know he's got the pedigree. We know that from plenty of seasons in the Premier League where he's absolutely smashed it. And the data's also not bad either. The other thing that does convince me that he's still a decent pick, especially for game week 11, is the fact that Gyökeres is out of that game. So he's definitely going to be the one on penalties in game week 11. So I have got a transfer plan where I would be getting rid of him. I'm not completely confident that that is the right move, considering he's going up against a promoted club and then Spurs after that. But we do need to hold him to a higher standard. And if he continues on this path where he might get the odd attacking return, but he's not consistently banging in the big returns, it's going to be a lot of money to be spending on a player that just isn't really performing at the heights you'd expect for that kind of price point. So he's got maybe a short life in my team if he continues down this route, but I still do have some faith left in him, especially because he is a fantastic player, and I do have faith that a player of his standard, a player of his quality is going to start returning soon. And I think there has been a dash of bad fortune in the last couple of game weeks for him not to have returned in the Premier League, especially because he is returning in other competitions as well. So a bit like Ismaila Sarr, I back it to balance out and level out over time, and the attacking returns will start to flow in the Premier League, hopefully very, very soon. Right then, so moving into my forward line, and no surprises whatsoever to see the armband on Erling Haaland, even at home to Liverpool. We'll talk about it later on in the captaincy matrix section, but I still have a lot of faith in him at home, especially. He's on a great run of form, and although Liverpool look a little bit better at the back, I still back Man City to score a couple of goals in that game. And if they score a couple of goals, it's very likely to be Erling Haaland. Moving across, João Pedro, I feel much more comfortable with than I did last week, especially with Wolves at home, followed by Burnley away, by the way, as well. So 2 good games on the trot. I'm recording this on the Thursday morning, so I have seen the Champions League game against Karabag, where he actually started the game, surprisingly enough, played about 73, 74 minutes, then got brought off. So I think he's going to be okay for the weekend. I don't think they would have bothered risking him in the midweek if there was even a chance that he wouldn't be fit for the weekend. So I'd be quite surprised not to see him start or get good minutes in that match in particular. Given how good he was against Spurs, it would be a bit of a weird decision to bring him out of the starting 11 at that point. So given that he's got good goal scoring odds against a Wolves team who are very much in flux at the moment without a manager at time of recording and have been pretty awful this season, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a good player to hold on to this week. Voltemada might be a slightly different case. Now, he got 45 minutes in game week 10. Not ideal, of course. And Eddie Howe has since come out and said that we're managing his load. He's played a lot of minutes, a lot of weight on his shoulders for someone who's just come into the team. So we just didn't want to take any chances on fatigue. Then he went and played him in the midweek Champions League clash at home at St James's Park in their 2-0 win. Brought him off a little bit early, around 83, 84 minutes. So he actually got some reasonable minutes in the midweek, which on one hand, I suppose is a good thing because he still clearly has faith in him to start and play good minutes. But also, if they're managing his load, then what's to say he doesn't get brought off early in game week 11 as well, given that he has just played in the midweek? The thing that maybe bodes well for Voltemada is 2 things that happened in the midweek. One came before kickoff. That is, Osula was taken out of the squad because he's picked up an injury. Now, we don't know how long that's going to be for, but Voltemada's only real competition in that centre-forward role is Osula at the moment. So if he's out for the weekend, then he should be nailed to start. And then the second factor is that Anthony Gordon came off in the first half with an injury, which means that if Gordon isn't fit for game week 11, Voltemada should be the one on penalties. So, although I've got my hesitations on him as an asset generally now, I think for game week 11 in particular, he might not be a bad hold, especially considering it's against Brentford away from home. It's not a terrible fixture, although Newcastle have been poor away from home. So there are other strikers I would prefer to have over Voltemada, but is he a player I need to get rid of ahead of game week 11, given that I think the minutes are likely to be pretty good with the injuries that we mentioned, and the fact he will probably have penalties, given that Gordon is a doubt going into game week 11 in particular. Let's take a quick look at my transfer plans going into game week 11. I've got a couple of different routes that I could take, so let's walk through them now. Right, so option number one would be my favoured of the two options. It would involve using 2 free transfers and upgrading Voltemada to Mateta. Now, I've already mentioned all of the pros for Voltemada in the previous section, but all of that being said, I still prefer Mateta by quite a long way as well. His big chances are way, way above the likes of Voltemada. He's getting better XG. Obviously, that comes with the big chances. He's probably more secure for minutes. And longer term, he is a secure penalty taker rather than Voltemada, who might only have penalties whilst Gordon is out for however long that might end up being. I just think that Mateta is the better of the two picks. He is more expensive, though, so I would need to free up some money. There aren't many ways that I can free up the money that I really like in the team. But one way that I have found is by downgrading Nick Pope. Now, I've talked about Nick Pope in this video already. I don't think he's a player I need to be getting rid of, and I still have confidence that Newcastle will turn it around, will become a more secure defence once again. And I think if Nick Pope does get a clean sheet, he is likely to get a bit of a haul for a keeper as well, with save points, with some bonus points every now and again as well. So I still quite like owning him. However, the other two options at 4.5 million I'm looking at, Kelleher and probably more likely Petrovic, I think are very close, if not matching Nick Pope over the next stretch of fixtures. Now, Petrovic in particular does appeal to me. He's obviously much cheaper and could help me get to Mateta from Voltemada. But the fixtures, I've mentioned it with Semenyo already, are about to turn really quite positive for a really long stretch of time. So although it would give me double Bournemouth defence, which I don't love, they have been relatively good defensively, aside from 1 or 2 games which stand out with bad data. That Crystal Palace game in particular was a very end-to-end match where they racked up the XGC. But outside of that, they've actually been a pretty okay defence. And Petrovic has done all right so far this season. Not quite as good as Nick Pope, but for 0.7, I think it is less, maybe 0.6, it's a compromise that I might be willing to make to afford Mateta. It all comes down to how desperate I am to upgrade Voltemada to Mateta this week. If I feel like Voltemada is secure enough on minutes, has penalties, and should do okay against Brentford, I might not need to rush it. But long term, I do want Mateta, and he's the striker I'd prefer to own, even over João Pedro as well. I would love a combination of Haaland with Mateta, and then that third striker is up for grabs. Maybe even I downgrade that slot. But Mateta is the guy that I want. So is it an excuse just to get it done this week, given that there are some question marks over Voltemada's minutes? Quite possibly. So let me know what you think of option number 1 in the comments. Let's move on to the other one. Okay, so another double swap I could look at doing in game week 11 to incorporate Mateta from Voltemada, we won't discuss that part again, would be to downgrade Saka to the likes of Fernandes, Mbeumo, Rice. I mean, anyone under around 8.99 million, basically, and I could do it. So that's fine. It's just whether or not I think that Saka is a sell. And although I love Bruno Fernandes, Mbeumo and Rice, I think out of those 3, it'd probably be Bruno Fernandes at this point. I like the fixture against Spurs. I think he's the one that I feel most secure in getting returns most game weeks. And Mbeumo I really like as well, by the way, and is a bit cheaper. But he's not too far away from going off to AFCON, and it's just another transfer booked in. Whereas I think Fernandes is close enough with Mbeumo, given that he's got penalties, he's got the security of minutes, that by the time we get to AFCON, it saves me a transfer as well. I think I prefer Fernandes out of the 2. And no question about it, in the next few weeks, I want to own Bruno Fernandes. It's just whether or not that I can get on board with downgrading Saka ahead of Sunderland away, which, okay, they've been a good defence so far, but there is a promoted club and Saka's data has been good. And then Spurs at home after that, which he will be bang up for as well, especially considering that Gyökeres is out at the moment. So Saka is definitely on penalties. I just don't think, the longer I've thought about this, I just can't really get on board with selling Saka this week. I just feel like it's something that I would end up regretting. Although I do like the double swap with Mateta and Fernandes, I think that long term, those are the two players I probably prefer to own rather than Voltemada and Saka, given the price points, especially for Fernandes. But this week, I think it's forcing it, and using 2 free transfers to get rid of Saka, who's on penalties against a promoted club, it just feels wrong. So I probably won't be using this move, but let me know in the comments below if you prefer this one and whether or not I might be missing a trick here by not moving these 2 players on to get to Fernandes and Mateta and then just long-term be happier with my squad. So I just wanted to wrap up the transfer section very quickly by taking a look at what I might do with Sean Longstaff if I get a bit spooked about his expected minutes going into game week 11 or 12, depending on when I want to use the bench boost. Now, most Leeds fans are pretty confident that he continues to start games, but if I have a bit of a gut feeling that he's not going to start this one for whatever reason, or if Daniel Farke comes out and says something to suggest that he might be a risk to start, I want to at least have a backup plan. So I've got no money in the bank to do this, so it needs to be a 4.9 million midfielder. The 3 that I'm considering are Dewsbury Hall, who I was delighted to see is only 4.9 million. I think that's quite lucky, with a decent home fixture against Fulham, especially if I want to bench boost this week. No potential for DEFCON though, and his attacking returns haven't been great, but none of them will be at 4.9 million. So it's all par for the course at that price. Then you've got the 2 Brighton options. So Vifa is probably my favoured of the 2 Brighton options. He's very good on the defensive contributions. Every match where he's gotten good minutes, he's hit DEFCON so far this season, and he's had a little bit of assist potential so far as well. So I don't hate him as an option just to raise the floor slightly, because as long as he starts the game, which he looks likely to do so, he will probably hit those DEFCON points again. So we're looking at a 4-point floor, unless, of course, he gets a yellow card, own goal, that kind of thing. So I quite like him. And then Gomez is the alternative, who has shown quite a lot of attacking threat. I think he scored 4 in the Carabao Cup at one point in one game, and he's just bagged a brace in the previous game week against Leeds. So he might not be a bad option, but his minutes are not anywhere near as secure as the first 2. I'd prefer not to have to make this move because it's a free transfer that I don't really want to have to make. So I'm hopeful that Sean Longstaff, I'm confident enough that he does start the game. And as long as I think he starts, I'll probably just hold on to him for now. But I just wanted to run through the alternatives in case I get spooked on his minutes going into game week 11. Right then, so I have an exclusive, very exciting announcement for you. One that you will not see anywhere else across YouTube, X, with any other content creator. Most of you will know who FPL Focal is. And if you do, you will know about his fantastic FPL app. Now, I would go as far to say that it is one of the essential tools for me in any given FPL game week. Whether or not it's during a game week, where I would say it's probably most important for me. It's probably the one app I'm on more than any other, given that it's got my live rank up to the minute. It's got all of the live DEFCON data and bonus points as they're coming in during a match. And in the build up to a game week, it's got everything you could ever want, including price changes, all of the underlying statistics, FPL articles, fixture tickers, goal scorer odds, clean sheet odds. The list truly does go on. It's even got footballers' real life FPL teams in there, which I cannot believe he's even managed to find. But all of this is all buried within the one app. Now, I'm delighted to say that Oscar has been kind enough to give me exclusive access to a code which will provide all of you with a full free month of premium access on his app. Now, I can truly vouch for this app. I spend a ridiculous amount of hours on it naturally anyway, probably a lot more than even the official FPL app. So I can really get behind this offer. I absolutely love the app. I would be surprised if you didn't as well, but give it a go for free for a month and let me know how you get on in the comments. So one of the key debates that I'm having internally this week is whether or not I want to use the bench boost and get it out of the way in game week 11 before the international break, or wait a week and use it after the international break in game week 12. Now, I've just set up quickly what my bench boosts might look like in both of the game weeks, just to have a bit of a head-to-head. I think on paper, Game week 12 looks ever so slightly better, mainly because they're all playing at home, even though some of the fixtures might be arguably slightly more difficult. So Dubravka has Chelsea at home instead of West Ham away, but they are at home and Burnley are much better at home. The same goes for Leeds at home to Aston Villa. They're much more tight, secure at home. They're a stronger team there rather than away at Nottingham Forest. And Anderson, I'd say it's pretty marginal. Everton away versus Sunderland at home. So not much in it there. The expected points on Solio suggest that game week 12 is ever so slightly better. But I think the key thing that makes me want to get it out of the way this week, even if on paper it doesn't look quite as nice, is the fact that I know, or at least at time of recording, I know that all of my players are fit and I can just get it out of the way without using free transfers to make it a playing 15. Whereas game week 12, anything could happen in game week 11 where players could get injured over the international break. The same thing could happen to any of my 15. And it might make game week 12 quite difficult to bench boost in. So I'd almost just like to get it out of the way this week, knowing that I've got a playing 15. And then next week in game week 12, I can start downgrading a position or two to really start jamming all of the money into my starting 11, because there are some expensive players in game week 12 and beyond, especially the Man United and the Liverpool players, that I currently don't really have the squad structure to accommodate. But if I just downgrade one striker, for instance, I can have a really strong 5 in midfield, incorporating a Cody Gakpo or a Szoboszlai or a Bruno Fernandes or an Mbeumo. I can start to afford those players in game week 12 if I get the bench boost done this week, and then I can effectively have a non-playing striker in my 15, not needing to bench boost in the future from game week 12 onwards. So on paper, it does maybe ever so slightly look better in game week 12, but I'm still tempted to get it done this week, knowing that I've got the fully fit 15, even if it is slightly worse on paper, just to get it done. And then I've got the freedom to make the transfers I want to in the future. So taking a quick look at the captaincy matrix for this game week, I'm on an 8 out of 10 hit rate, so 80%, and I've picked up 12 attacking returns in 10 game weeks, so a 1.2 returns per game week. So we're off to a good start, although again, I keep saying it week on week. I can't take much credit for that because it's been a pretty simple decision week on week just to pick Erling Haaland given the form he's in, especially at home. Now, Bournemouth was not, on paper, an easy fixture. He still bags a brace and probably could have had more if he'd stayed on the pitch. So I'm going with him yet again. And I'm sorry if it's boring, but even against Liverpool, who have looked better at the back in the last couple of weeks, against Real Madrid, against Aston Villa, I still back Man City and I still back Erling Haaland to get the opportunities to get in behind and get a couple of goals. So although I think it's getting tighter and tighter in games like this, especially Liverpool being a bit more solid at the back recently, I'm still backing Erling Haaland. I'm sorry it's boring, but he is my captain this game week. I think he's just about better than Saka away at Sunderland. If Sunderland looked like a weaker defence, then I might be more tempted to go with him. Or if Saka had shown a little bit more form recently, then also that might play on my mind. Bruno Fernandes away at Spurs. You never know what Spurs is going to turn up. If it's the one that took on Chelsea, then I'd say that looks like a pretty interesting differential option. But I'm just not seeing enough reason to go against Haaland right now. Game week 12 is going to be much more interesting because he goes up away at Newcastle, and Newcastle at home are a very tight defence, and there are some good fixtures for players outside of Haaland that we might be more tempted to captain. So game week 12 is going to be a bit more interesting. This week, I'm sticking with Haaland. Okay, so let's wrap up the video by taking a quick look at my team in game week 11. My bench boost is currently active, and I think I'm going to just keep it that way as long as I don't get any injuries in the Thursday evening games. Obviously, Palace play tonight. So Sarr, Mateta as well, who I am potentially looking at a transfer in for, are both probably going to get some minutes. So I will hold off on any moves until then. I think I can probably roll if I want to, given that it looks like Voltemada is going to be relatively secure for minutes in game week 11. However, I am pretty tempted to move to Mateta and probably downgrade Nick Pope as well. So I will wait until after the Thursday evening games. Hopefully there won't be any price changes that block me from those moves because I've got the exact money to do it. But I will, of course, be back tomorrow with my Friday evening live stream where I will be very likely locked in either way on whether or not I'm going to make the moves. So come have a chat with me on Friday evening about it. And obviously I can answer any of your own FPL questions in that stream as well. That's kind of what it's there for. I think I'm relatively happy with my playing 15 here. Captaincy on Haaland. I would even be comfortable with not using the bench boost. I think that's a strong enough 11 to hopefully get me a green arrow going into game week 12. However, I do really want Mateta, so I am going to be tempted to make that move. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you would also be tempted to make that double swap, or if you would just leave it, roll it to 4 free transfers into game week 12 after the international break, where I can have a lot more fun with my transfers and attack the fixture swings. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Leave a like if you have, and especially hit subscribe if you want to see more from me. And it would be greatly helpful, especially as we're so close now to 5,000 subs. So thank you in advance, and I'll see you tomorrow evening for my Friday night live stream.